Because of the complexity of many technology-based activities, rubrics are a common way to score student products and assign grades. But rubrics are more than a checklist or simple grading criteria. They can be a powerful tool to support learning and promote self-regulation. This short presentation is designed to help you make the most out of the rubrics used in the Educational Technologies class. Rubrics go beyond simple grading criteria. Presented before an activity, they can serve as a job aid to help let students know the scope of a project, including all required elements. They give indication of a range of acceptable work, from basic requirements to the components of exemplary work. They can also be used by students throughout the completion of the activity as a self-monitoring tool to make sure they are meeting the requirements of the activity. Another powerful use of a rubric is to allow students to think about and define what they believe to be acceptable performance. When co-created with students, the activity can yield powerful insights into what your students already know and can do, as well as their own expectations for success. You may be surprised at the maturity of these discussions, as students often set very high measures of success when given the chance to provide this input. You may not have the time to do this for every activity, but I encourage you to try to co-create a rubric with your students at least once to see what they come up with. They might surprise you. Like the other classes in Bethel University's Masters of Education program, the Educational Technologies course moves fast and furious. You only have 8 weeks to get a lot of work accomplished, so the rubrics for this course have already been developed. Every activity in the course has a rubric. They are all posted in the course materials. You are not only allowed to view them before you begin each activity, but you are encouraged to do so and to use them to shape your activity responses. Here's how you can do that. Each week, download the rubrics for the unit. The rubrics for the discussion activities are always the same, but each complete activity has a unique rubric. Be sure to review the rubric and determine the requirements before you begin your work. You may even want to review them before reading the text or reviewing the lecture materials, so you can look for key elements in those resources. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is to submit a response to an activity based only on reading the directions. The directions are only a part of the puzzle. While I've made effort to clarify the directions, the rubric should be considered an integral part of each activity. The directions give you a goal and overview, while the rubrics give you specific criteria to include. Let's look at one. These are the directions for the very first complete activity for Unit 1. Notice how they require you to list at least 2 goals for your participation in the course, and then some criteria for those goals. There are a lot of key words in the directions, though, that you might miss. That's where the rubric comes in. The rubric identifies the most critical aspects of the activity and gives you a range of performance you can shoot for. Here's the rubric for that same activity. You might want to download it from the course materials in order to read it better. Notice how the rubric identifies key areas your response should relate to. For this activity, your response should specifically address the 4 key areas of goal statements, connection to personal experience, learning strategies, and outcomes. Leaving any one of these areas out of your response can result in losing up to 1/4 of the total possible points. But that's not all. If you only read the directions and post the 2 learning goals, you might think you're done, but look at the detail for those goals. Here's the detail for the goal statements. You can list 2 learning goals, but if they're general in nature or you can't achieve them during the 8 weeks of this course, you might only score 1 out of 5 possible points. This is much more specific information than simply listing 2 learning goals. You might not catch that level of detail from the directions alone, even though they've been revised to try to emphasize all required criteria. For example, let's say your goals included creating 1 lesson a week for the entire school year that emphasized educational technologies. You wouldn't get full credit for that goal. Our class is only 8 weeks long. There's no way to monitor if you've achieved a year-long goal 8 weeks from now. Even if that's a laudable goal, if you can't meet the criteria set out in the rubric, you won't get the highest possible scores. And if you only list 1 goal, you won't get any credit at all, not even half credit. So now do you see how important the rubrics are for guiding your work? If you're new to using rubrics, consider using them as an outline for your responses. In this case, there are 4 major criteria for the activity as described in the rubric. You may want to consider writing 4 sections to your response. The first would be your 2 goal statements. The second section would describe the connections of those goals to your personal experiences. The third would describe preferred learning strategies, and the final section would describe outcomes. You don't have to be that literal with the rubrics, but if you do use them that way, they do a lot of the work for you. They frame and organize your response. You can also quickly check to make sure you've met all the criteria by checking the number of rows in the rubric and seeing if you responded to each one. Some will have more than 4 rows, some less. It just depends on the activity. But each rubric is designed to guide your learning as you complete each activity. I hope this short overview about rubrics will be helpful to you as you use them to guide your own learning in this class. You may even want to incorporate the use of rubrics in your own teaching, if you're not already doing so. For more information on a specific type of activity unique to this class that also uses a rubric, review the presentation on the game plan.